Welcome to Giant Ability TV.
We must learn to reawaken and keep ourselves awake, not by mechanical aid but by an infinite expectation of the dawn, which does not forsake us even in our soundest sleep. I know of no more encouraging fact than the unquestionable ability of man to elevate his life by a conscious endeavor. It is something to be able to paint a particular picture or to carve a statue, and so to make a few objects beautiful. But it is far more glorious to carve and paint the very atmosphere and medium through which we look, which morally we can do to affect the quality of the day. That is the highest of hearts. Henry David Thoreau Walden. Nigeria needs to borrow a leaf from the saying that a fool at 40 is a fool forever. I personally do not agree totally with the saying that limits a man's ability for a deliberate and intentional change to certain factors which include age. By a dent of grace, man is able to do what is right and at any time that he is willing and ready, as long as he lives. Nigeria is 64 years old, having gained independence in 1960. But the situation on ground, especially that which has to do with the problem of insecurity, which is a product of the lack of will and determination by the various entities that make up Nigeria, is a serious source of worry and concern. Democracy is believed to be the government of the people, for the people, and by the people. And if that is true of this system of government that is unanimously preferred over every other one, especially the military government, and we still cannot enjoy the dividend that comes from it, the truth is that it is either the system is not designed to work in our own kind of setting, or it is that we, the people, are not getting it right with regard to what needs to be done and how they have to be done. What should be a concern is not the question of whether we are constrained as a people by age or other factors of change, but the question that needs to be answered is whether or not we know what we are doing wrong. And if so, why we have continued to do it the wrong way, despite the same negative results that we have been getting. It is now about 25 years since the return of democracy in 1999, and there are no educational institutions in the world where one would need 25 years, having obtained the first degree, to bag a doctoral degree. The situation becomes worse when one considers the position given to Nigeria, or well-deserved, of the country as the giant of Africa, being the most populous black nation, as well as the largest economy and democracy in Africa. What is sure is that there is no problem that is without a solution. Whether it is true that with time problems solve themselves is another ball game altogether. The three arms of government in a democracy like ours, which include the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary, are designed to be independent of one another, and each one is expected to checkmate the other. Where this is impracticable, the realization of the dividend of democracy automatically becomes unrealistic. In trying to proffer solutions to the major problems that seem to have become intractable and the reasons for the sufferings of the majority of Nigerians. The activities of these institutions cannot be overemphasized, but the truth remains that the institutions are run by the people, and to this end, if they are bad, it is not them but the people that is. We, the Nigerians, that are bad. Having realized that what needs to be taken care of going forward is finding answers to the question of why we as a people are bad, does it mean that we are created by God to be bad, or that our environment was designed by our Maker to make us bad? Without gainsaying the fact, God did not create the people as bad, and there is no environment that God created intentionally to be bad. This revelation now takes us to the aspect of association, and the question to ask is, if a group of people, or if people who are of different backgrounds, as seen in cultures, tribes, and even religious beliefs, are brought together not by will but compulsion, to what extent can these affect them in terms of their coexistence? Take, for instance, the case of a man and a woman brought together by force into a marriage union. It will take a miracle for such a union to breed joy, peace, and progress. Don't forget also that as a man thinks in his heart, so is he, and the quality of one's thought determines the quality of his life. Realize also that all the thoughts of a turtle are also turtle. The amalgamation of Nigeria in 1914 was nothing other than bringing different nations with people of different cultures, traditions, languages, and even religions together. Not willingly, but by force. That action fits in for description as an accidental marriage. One may, by reason of chewing complacency, say that 100 years have been long enough to make the entities brought together get well fermented together. But realize that he who conquers by force is full, conquers him only by half. What we have as an issue that is yet to be resolved in Nigeria today is the lack of national values and the absence of what makes for the lack of the spirit of patriotism. Believing in the only flag, the green, white, green color, and the recitation of a single national anthem do not constitute a belief in one national ideology and by extension ourselves. The lack of national ideology is a product of not having all our differences that we brought into the Union well fermented together. This has been the reason and causation of suspicion amongst us as a people. The Civil War and its aftermath is a fuel which helps in strengthening the fire of suspicion. It is important and urgent that we address this problem of diversity not well mixed and fermented together, causing disunity amongst us once and for all by taking this admonition to heart. Notice the word, sense it, react to it, change it. If you work in a room with harsh fluorescent lighting and windows that can be opened, and hard formica furniture, sense how these things present themselves, how they affect you. Don't fall prey to the therapist's fantasy that the problem is always in you when you are suffering because of the room. Do what you can to change it, to make it as personal as you can. Fit it to you. Be eccentric. Put a lampshade over the light. Carl Jung. The threat to the safety of Nigerians, especially from the Fulani Militants, is back again in the news, with the most recent contained in a statement made by the Fulani Nationalist Movement, FUNAM, on January 24, 2024, and signed by two of its officers, namely Umar Amir Shehu and Badu Salisu Amadu. The statement reads as follows. 1. On the arrest of the Fulani leader and our last warnings, we hereby reintegrate our demand for the immediate release of the President, Miyetti Allah Kato Ore Bello Bodejo. Release Bodejo or the government will have itself to blame. We hereby give 72 hours notice. Failure to release him, the Nigerian government will hear from us. 2. Post-election imminent crisis. We have deliberately been silent for obvious reasons, chief of which was the intervention of our elders before the 2023 elections. Unfortunately, the elders gave us false promises that they would hand over the presidential seat to someone who can protect the Fulani interest, but they never did. Even after the February election, we were assured that power will not be shifted, but they have done what they promised never to do. We are aware of the effort, but the anti-Fulani forces prevailed. 3. Inevitable jihad. It is now obvious that we have no other option than to relaunch our campaign, which have started in earnest. Henceforth, the Nigerian government will hear from us in every town, every village, every city, every community in the South and Middle Belt. Our campaign will be swift and decisive, and nobody will be able to help Nigeria. The Fulanis can never have a country where they are second-class citizens. That is unacceptable. 4. The arrest of any Fulani man in connection with the jihad is a crime against our collective interest. We want the Nigerian government not to make the mistake of arresting any Fulani leader or person ever again. We are watching the action of the government in relation to the explosion in Ibadan. If any Fulani man is arrested, be assured that our responses will be total, ruthless, and immediate. 5. We call on all our Fulani brothers to take the war into the enemy territory in Plateau, Enugu, Lagos, Ibadan, Port Harcourt, Makurdi, until the infidel governments are brought down. Our current effort in Plateau will not cease until the infidels are suppressed and the Jihad gladly installed in every part of Nigeria to the glory of our father Udman Danfodio. Expect more bombings in every public places across the South, Middle Belt and Abuja from the month of February 2024. 6. We call on non-Fulani people to vacate Plateau, Kaduna and Benue State if they are not ready to live under the inevitable jihad which will eventually be all over Nigeria. The threats that are contained in this statement are weighty and demand quick intervention from the relevant security agencies in Nigeria. However, since the time the statement was made public, no one has come out to debunk the claim in connection with the names of the signatories, and no arrest, to the best of our knowledge, has been made in respect to these threats. It is important to note also that the new EFCC chairman, Mr. Ola Olukoyede, revealed on Wednesday, 31st January 2024, how a powerful religious sect in the country secured a court order to stop its men from probing the 7 billion naira linked to some terrorists. The commission, Vanguard learned, was investigating a princely sum of 13 billion naira fraud when it discovered that 7 billion naira of cash was linked to a religious body's account. A religious sect in this country had been found to be laundering money for terrorists, Olukoyede said without naming those involved, and when the crime took place. He went further to say that we were able to trace some laundered money to a religious organization, and when we approached the religious organization about it and we were carrying out our investigation, we got a restraining order stopping us from carrying out our investigation. In the light of this revelation, we hope that the names of the terrorist sponsor and members of the religious sect that are involved will be made public. If a group of people can come out boldly to the open to threaten the Nigerian state with jihad and with impunity, this goes a long way to tell Nigerians and the world that the country is sitting on a keg of gunpowder. The killings in the plateau, where more than 200 people were murdered on the eve of Christmas 2023, and the most recent in Mangu local government, where more than 30 people were murdered and churches burnt, serve to corroborate the menace of the Fulani militia and the dastardly acts they are carrying out in the Nigerian state. Recall how on Monday, January 29, 2023, the Fulani terrorists wreaked havoc in Ekiti State, where two Ekiti monarchs, the Onimojo of Imojo, Oba Olatunde Olushola, and the Eleshun of Eshun Ekiti, Oba Babatunde Ogunsakin, were killed, while the Alara of Ara Ekiti, Oba Adebayo Fatoba, narrowly escaped. And on the same day, 5 pupils of Apostolic Faith Group of Schools in Mure Ekiti and 4 staff members were kidnapped, after which a ransom of 100 million naira were demanded by their abductors.
January 29, 2024, these criminals carried out a dastardly attack in the Okeako area in Ikole local government area, resulting in the death of 2 traditional rulers and leaving a host of others with life-threatening injuries. The House also urges the security agencies to put all measures in place to rescue the school children and teachers who were abducted in Emure Ekiti. The House also mandates the House Committee on Legislative Compliance to ensure compliance and report back to the House. So I so move, Mr. Speaker.
The situation in Nigeria in regards to the upsurge in the spate of terrorism, banditry and kidnapping paints a picture that aptly fits in for description as the Golgotha of carnage, as well as the saddest episode in the history of Nigeria. The government of the day and the security architecture seem to be overwhelmed, and beyond that, community psychologists have connected the ends of the government to these barbaric happenings for reasons which include trying to create a troublesome and warlike situation that will get the military boys occupied, lest they get tempted while I do to look in the direction of power and consider hijacking it. They are also of the belief that taking the eyes of Nigerians away from the matters of government, especially that of corruption, can only be achieved by creating a situation that will cause fear and avoidable distractions to the masses. Otherwise, how do we explain the possibility of having these incessant killings and abductions going on with the security agencies and governments seen as only being reactive and not proactive? President Bola Ahmed Tinubu should understand that Nigerians are tired of him being a comedian and trying to be funny with matters of their lives. His lack of empathy has been of great concern to well-meaning Nigerians, and this creates a room for suspicion as it buttresses the speculations that suggest the involvement of government in the incessant killings of Nigerians. Recall how the president cracked a joke in one of his foreign engagements in relation to his spontaneous removal of the oil subsidy and the attendant reforms that have only aggravated the sufferings of Nigerians. To this, he gave himself a credit and promised to insert his name in the Guinness Book of Records.
Nigerians voted for me for reforms. And from day one of my inauguration, I started the reform. Day one. To me, if you didn't mention me in the Guinness Book of Records, I will try to find a way to insert myself. Because I did it without expectation.
In response to the joke made, the presidential candidate of the Labour Party in the last presidential election of February 25th, 2023, Mr. Gregory Peter Obi, tried to better situate the joke in connection with the aforementioned Guinness Book of Records when he said, "It may actually be correct when he claims that his name deserves to be in the Guinness World Records. Don't forget that people's names don't always make it into the Guinness World Records for only altruistic reasons. So it depends on which angle he is coming from. If the idea is to put his name in the Guinness Book of Records for causing Nigerians the most hardship, untold hardship, of course he is spot on, and I will totally agree with him because his reforms are not achieving what they are meant to achieve. Well, for me, the biggest lesson from the 2023 general elections is the fact that Nigerians are actually committed to good governance. They are not as complacent as people thought they were because they, especially the youth, were actually committed to doing the right thing. That is why they came out in their numbers to participate in the elections. The second lesson is the realization that the leaders, most people in the elite class, are not actually interested in good governance because you can classify the electoral umpire as part of the elite class, the government. All of us are not prepared to do the right thing because if the elites are prepared to do the right thing, the result or the outcome of the election would have been different. But for me, the elections have come and gone, and I don't want to talk about the issue of the 2023 elections again. It has come and gone, and I am done with it. What I am talking about now are issues of governance, because the average Nigerian today is talking about the Nigeria of today and the Nigeria of tomorrow. That is what is important. Speaking on how he rates the government so far, he said, "That is really a question for the generality of Nigerians to answer. Ask the average Nigerian how he is faring today. The truth is that we have many more Nigerians thrown in poverty. Millions of Nigerians don't know where the next meal will come from. Nobody is sure what the price of a cup of rice, gari, or a loaf of bread will be tomorrow. So it is Nigerians that you should ask the question. It is not a question for me to answer. It is not something I alone will tell you. Ask Nigerians. The masses out there on the streets of Nigeria, and you will get a feel of what they are going through. But I know that the situation is critical." On a final note, Tinubu cannot be said to have been out of place by making mention of his desire to have his name in the Guinness Book of Records. This is so because just as he prophesied in Abeokuta while preparing towards the 2023 presidential elections, with the saying that Emi Lokon, meaning it is my turn, which eventually turned out as prophetic. The same may be the case with the issue of the Guinness Book of Records. However, the best way to situate it in order to make it prophetic and a turnaround declaration for both himself, Nigerians, and the entire African continent is for him to choose to embark on the most important legacy project, which is nothing other than the restructuring of the Nigerian state and the jettisoning of the 1999 Constitution. This, without gainsaying the fact, will put the name of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, regardless of how he came to hijack power in Nigeria, above the names of his predecessors such as former President Olusegun Obasanjo, late President Musa Yar'Adua, former President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, former President Muhammadu Buhari, and personalities like the late Obafemi Awolowo and the late Chief MKO Abiola and others. Suffice to say that in reality, after the exit of the former bloodthirsty Fulani leader in person of Muhammadu Buhari, who bankrupted Nigeria, the country needed not another leader but a savior who will help Nigerians to bail the cat, which impliedly is to put the Fulanis, marauders and terrorists into the position where they truly belong, to give peace a chance in Nigeria. This task, I believe, is why God allowed Bola Ahmed Tinubu to emerge, and the goal cannot be achieved when he allows his will to roar, when his power only whispers. He should bear in mind that if he fails to get the better side of himself, others will get it. Thank you, our viewers, for your continued support and encouragement by sharing our videos and subscribing to our channel. We are committed to furnishing you with positive ideas that are capable of awakening the giant in you. You are the best. God bless Nigeria.